Let's talk to Rod Liddle. Rod, a very good morning to you. Oh, good afternoon to you, I should say, sorry.
Good afternoon to you, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. A couple of very funny things to talk to you about, but I thought maybe we should kick off with Michael Parkinson. A lot of people mourning his demise, and of course he was a great interviewer. You know, those people that knew him have sort of mixed reports, I suppose, as to, you know, he could be a bit curmudgeonly, and he was one of those men of Yorkshire that could be a particular grumpy kind of individual. But I mean,
that was just southern snobbery, I think.
Well, it may well have been. I knew people who actually knew him well from his days as a cricket reporter in Yorkshire, who said he was a great guy. But I certainly look back on his interviews as very much part of my sort of growing up process, because we used to watch it on a Saturday night religiously. Muhammad Ali and, you know, all the other people that he interviewed. Rod Hull, of course, everyone remembers. Meg Ryan, that one as well. I mean, what did you make of his style? Because we don't really have anyone like that anymore, do we?
Was exactly... well, no, that's the point, I think. I mean, it was exactly the same experience as you. It was compulsory Saturday night viewing along with Match of the Day. And the quality of guests he got on as his career progressed was quite marvellous. You know, I mean, the things we really remember we remember Rod Hull and the Emu, but also, you know, Muhammad Ali and this James Stewart. I remember one wonderful interview with James Stewart. You couldn't have him today because our attention spans have got so short. Basically, the late evening in-depth interview is Graham Norton giggling with someone, and you know, there's no depth, there's no resonance, there's no room even for brilliant anecdotes, and Parky was able to let the celebrities divest themselves of these anecdotes, but he was also able to dig beneath the surface of these celebrities a little bit. Yeah, you know.
I mean, I spoke to Ali Ross earlier. He was saying it was all kind of as well before the time of the PR. You know, the sort of the dead hand of PR, where they say, you know, I had somebody a few weeks ago who sort of turned up with a publicist who was like, oh, well, they don't want to talk about this or that. I'm like, sorry, that's not what we do. You know?
No, that's right. That's right. And I think the more we do that today, I mean, that was always my approach on the Today programme. When guests say I'm not talking about this or that, we would always ask them about this or that first.
Yes, exactly. Sure. That goes straight to the top of the agenda.
Exactly. But Parkinson, the cleverness of Parkinson was be able to poke beneath the surface a little bit. And I remember he did it very memorably with Stuart Granger, who revealed himself to be a bit of a fairly unpleasant.
Yes, a bit pompous.
And very pompous. And he was able to do that whilst letting the guests effectively think that they were there being lauded. He was an extraordinarily good interviewer.
He really was. And I said, I think, and many people I think would agree, that the Meg Ryan interview, which was sort of one of the later ones that he did, kind of proved in a way that he perhaps it was time for him to give up. Because I know that this was a split room in some ways, because some people thought that Meg Ryan was a bit haughty and a bit kind of deliberately difficult. But as Ali Ross said, that he quite liked flirting with the women on his show, and if they didn't flirt back, he didn't really know where to go.
Yes, maybe. It rather put me off Meg Ryan, to be honest. It didn't really put me off.
Well, isn't it funny? Because I think that's what I mean. I mean, I think there were two camps. One of those was like you, who thought, well, actually, she's being a bit haughty. And others, like me, actually, to my shame, I'm afraid, I thought, well, he was probably a bit over the top there.
Did you?
Yeah.
To be honest, I can't remember it well enough. You're absolutely right, though. He did tend to flirt with the female guests.
Yeah.
In the same way that Graham Norton flirts with the male guests, I suppose.
Yes. I think he flirts with everybody, really, doesn't he?
Nothing changes.
No. No.
But I don't. I think the sad thing is that you couldn't have that kind of thing today. I don't know where. You know, who could do that kind of job now? Maybe Melvin Bragg, maybe Clive Anderson.
I think he's too old, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but in a sense, I don't think any of us, the rest of us, are interested.
I wonder as well whether that whole era is just no longer there, because...
I think that's right.
Because the type of people that you would be interviewing now wouldn't be the same calibre you know, people like David Niven, and as you say, even Stuart Granger, if you didn't like the guy, you know, these were kind of big characters. You know, you'd get Diana Rigg on, or you'd get Dame Judi Dench. He would just get stuff out of people, I think.
No, these days you'd have an influencer on, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly right. Or, you know, the latest, you know, the female football captain or something like that, you know, from...
Yeah, or from someone from Love Island.
Women's World Cup. Yeah. But anyway...
That sounded a bit disdainful, Michael.
Did it? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Well, of course, my standing excuse now is that I'm not going to support them because I'm Scottish, effectively. So. My parents are both from Scotland, and I don't really support England at anything. People get quite upset. Why don't you support England? I'm like, well, because my father was Scottish, my mother was Scottish. I was born in London, but I could have played for Scotland, particularly at times when their team were particularly bad. You know, I don't feel the same excitement when England win things as people who are actually English.
Oh, that's interesting, because I'm 80% Scottish. I did one of those genetic surveys and came out 80% Scottish, but I still hate them.
That accounts for your perspicacity, obviously.
Yeah, it accounts for my split personality. I think predilection for alcohol and pie.
Yeah,
well,
and arguing.
And arguing. Yeah.
People say, what are your two hobbies? Drinking and arguing. I've got a great one for you here, which I don't know whether you've seen. BBC Feedback, I don't know whether you know, is an actual Twitter account. They have issued this particular dictum. We recently found out that BBC Radio 4's audience has been shrinking, especially in the case of its flagship programmes. Why do you think this is happening? Please drop your thoughts in the thread below. I retweeted it with the words, it's pretty bloody obvious, isn't it? I mean...
It's very obvious. It is almost impossible to listen to Radio 4 now without just becoming enraged within 1.5 minutes because of their obsessiveness. Their obsessiveness on race and their obsessiveness on gender.
Yes.
And everything is seen through that prism. And that goes way beyond the news and current affairs programme.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the drama's even worse.
It's the dramas. You turn on and you see that once again they are super serving 18-year-old African Caribbean young men.
Yeah. Right.
Which was obviously their core audience.
Always has been. I mean, I will flip around in the morning in the car, and so sometimes when I get back in the car later on in the day, it's on Radio 4. And there's some god-awful stuff on in the afternoon. I mean, I'm sometimes sort of driven almost to distraction while driving the car home because it's so bad. You're kind of trying to work out what on earth they're thinking of, what they think they're doing.
Yeah, no, that's right. It is. There was one on yesterday, I think, the day before Monday, which I assumed was a spoof. It was about a man who made music by vibrating spider webs. And it went on for half an hour.
Brilliant.
And it suddenly dawned on me, Christ, they mean it.
Yeah. I tuned in once to do the show, the 5 p.m. Is it p.m. they call it?
PM, yeah.
And they were doing it from some cheese artisan cheese farm or something. I'm going, oh, so well, now they're taking the show on the road. Why are they doing it in a place where they make cheese for very rich people who have got sort of, you know, dairies in their own high street because they live somewhere near Herne Hill? I mean, it was literally like that was who they were doing it for.
Well, and indeed, I still remember PM during the run-up to Brexit, where they had it's so funny. They had a Brexit street which they would go to every few days, and it was a street in Stockton where people were very much in favour of leaving the European Union. But it was the way it was framed. This is Brexit Street, these ghastly little Northerners.
Oh, yes.
It's absolutely awful. I was deputy editor of that programme once.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can say now without fear or favour, in the good old days, you know, when it actually was a I mean, I kid you not, nothing to do with you being there, but there was a time when I was working in Fleet Street, you had to listen to the day programme because I'd come in the morning, and if you hadn't heard what was on it, somebody would give you a going over. The deputy editor would come over and say, "Did you hear so and so on the Today programme?" If you said no, you were you were in a bad place.
Yes, quite right. But now, who listens to it?
Yeah, well,
the audience is
even they're
falling away.
admitting that they've got a shrinking audience. You know, times are tough.
Yeah, but you know, I think in a way the news and current affairs stuff is a slight distraction. I mean, because there are so many now news and current affairs channels,
Yes.
and there's a lot of competition. And I don't think that is the main problem with Radio 4. I think the main problem is, as we've been talking about, the rest of the stuff. You know, it misses its audience.
Yeah.
There is no one who wants to listen to that crap. No. It's been truly badly managed the last 5 or 6 years.
Takes me back to my days in New York when somebody once asked the editor of the New York Times, why don't you have any correspondence in the Bronx? And he went, well, we haven't got any readers there.
Yes.
And they went, well, why have you got 7 in Africa then?
Well, quite. And the New York Times is another one to talk about. One of these.
That has totally gone down the toilet. You know, the great thing that I think the beginning of their demise was when 9/11 happened, and they just did a normal front page. You know, they had a picture of, you know, the Twin Towers on fire, where they always put the picture with a headline about the main story, which was the Twin Towers, but all the rest of the page was still full of all sorts of other ridiculous stories.
Except in fairness, Mike, I can remember the local newspaper. I think it was the Argus in Newport.
Yeah.
In Gwent.
Yes, I know the Newport Argus.
Yeah, which didn't, or this is what we all told ourselves at the neighbouring South Wales Echo, so maybe it's apocryphal, but we were told that the Newport Argus didn't cover Aberfan, the Aberfan disaster, right, because it wasn't in their circulation area. There were Japanese camera crews and Americans and everything.
Yeah, it's a bit like was it not the Aberdeen Courier that reported the Titanic as, you know, Aberdeen man lost at sea?